Hi everyone. Um, this is quite a sad video for me to make today. This morning we set off for London at about 10 o'clock because Nathan got a call on, must be Wednesday or Thursday, from a friend who has been suffering with cancer and multiple health issues for a couple of years, to say that he was in hospital and basically his death was imminent. He wanted us to go down. We couldn't go straight down because my son was ill this week, off of school with flu, proper flu, and was really ill. And on top of that, the clutch on our car, which had been playing up for a week, was on its way out, wasn't safe to make the journey on the motorway, and the mechanic was supposed to come and pick that up on Wednesday for repair, but as it was, he was sick as well, and he didn't come and take the car until I think it was Thursday evening. So we didn't get the car back till last night. So we got up this morning and drove down. Nathan checked on the phone, tried calling inside, couldn't get through, but did see that the phone was last active at 6 in the morning. So we just drove down there. Sadly, we got to the reception and were told that Syed was deceased. So we got back in the car and came home. So we've literally just not long got back. Syed was no longer a Jehovah's Witness. Our friendship went back years. So when I joined the cult, for those of you that have watched my channel, you'll know that I didn't grow up in the Watchtower. I met Nathan. His mum was a witness and had indoctrinated him with the ways of Watchtower, but he wasn't in Watchtower when I met him. Anyway, we met and married in a very short space of time, and basically I started having a study and joined Watchtower around about the age of 18, and then Nathan went back to Watchtower. We ended up getting baptised at the same time, and it was then that I became friends with Syed. Nathan had known him most of his life. There was another friend that was tight with us at the time, Steve, and so quite often, like when me and Nathan had our first place, quite often Steve and Syed would be part of the furniture there. Not that we had much furniture in those days, but they were always there, and we had a lot of good times. We used to come back from the meetings. The guys would put some sport on and we'd have food, and I had my small children at the time, and we had some nice times. We had some hard times as well. There was times when none of us would have any money. Do you know what it's like in Watchtower? You're not encouraged to do any overtime as a bloke. You want to do your bare minimum and get out in the ministry, even if your house is falling down around you. And as a woman, you want to try and base yourself more as a housewife, so you can spend time in the ministry and indoctrinate your children and that. So we were quite often short of money, and Steve and Syed had their own things going on. Syed at the time he'd been through a marriage breakdown, and he was going through a real depression, and so he'd spend a lot of time at ours. And he also had health issues at the time with his eyes. He always struggled with his eyes, and he knew that his sight would be diminished as he got older. And Steve had foregone probably having a fantastic career as a drummer to come into Watchtower. And anyway, we all spent a lot of time together, and we all often had hard times, and sometimes we would pool our money together, see what we've got so that we could buy food and we'd eat together and all that sort of thing. We were kind of like a bit of a little family unit. Anyway, yeah, we were friends for years. We've all seen each other go through highs and lows, but something, so eventually we all woke up, but something that stuck in my mind, which was kind of early in our journey of waking up, was I don't know if anyone remembers out there, if you were in Watchtower at the time, but they were introducing the new life and ministry meeting format. And what the Watchtower had done, they had put out a video on JW Broadcasting for all the witnesses to watch, so that you could now see how the meetings were supposed to roll, and basically how you were supposed to behave at the meetings, and what was deemed like appropriate answers and things like that. So you could watch it at home, so you'll be prepared when you go to the meeting. And at the time that they put this out, my dad was seriously ill in hospital, and so in the meantime, me and Nathan and our children had moved out of London to Suffolk, and then years later, my dad was seriously ill in hospital in London, and so we went down and we stayed at Steve's house. And then while we was there, Side came over, and it was a bit like old times, all of us together. Anyway, we were up chatting late one evening, and we decided to put on this new life and ministry format meeting, so that we could all see, you know, how the changes were going to come in. And I tell you, when we put that on, literally nobody spoke. We played it, and it was a really weird atmosphere. We all just kind of sat in silence and watched it, and you could see that we were all piecing together our own thoughts on that, and no one really said anything. Anyway, afterwards we turned it off, and then the conversation kind of lightened, and we got back to the normal things that we like talking about, and that went by the by. But that stuck in my mind because we all eventually woke up. I never forget that night, because I think that was kind of like a slight turning point in how we all saw the organisation that we were in. It looked so culty, robotic, fake. It just seemed. It seemed like, you know, when you watch programs on cults on telly, that it seemed like that, but we were in it. And so yeah, it was quite uncomfortable. And so I always think back to that, and every now and again I'll say to Nathan, "Oh, do you remember that night we all watched the life and ministry meeting, and we were all just like kind of, it was like tumbleweeds kind of thing." Anyway, we all eventually did wake up, and when I left Watchtower, so we were all kind of researching for different reasons, because we all had obviously our own lives and our own things going on in our lives, and what caused me to do the research that I did was obviously the child abuse issue. If you've watched my videos, you'll know kind of how I woke up from Watchtower. But basically we had a case of we had an abuser in the hall who was known by the elders to have had an accusation. They still made him up as a ministerial servant. It came out that he abused someone else. Bethel took him off from being ministerial servant, and it all kind of blew up, and then it started to wake me up. I'd also watched the Australian Royal Commission. Anyway, so when we'd all started to wake up, kind of like Nathan would speak to the guys on the phone often, and obviously he would like let them know where I'm at with things, and you know, they'd all talk about where they were at with things. But for me, I had a very quick like awakening. So I woke up, I decided it was bullshit, I was leaving, I was going to send in a disassociation letter, I was going to let everybody know what was going on, I was going to start car crashing, I wanted to get involved in activism, I was going to go and protest at the convention and the Kingdom Hall and all that sort of thing. And it was all too like fast and furious for like Stephen's side, and they kind of took a back step, but they were still waking up. And I remember when I did my first car crash, Nathan saying to me that they'd all, like the three of them had said, you know, we'll see if she's on the right path, if Jehovah strikes her down when she does it. So it's quite funny, really, how things played out. Anyway, after that time, when Side did wake up proper, he made moves to move abroad. There were multiple reasons, like his health, his financial situation, but there's no doubt in my mind, there's not one shred of doubt in my mind that part of that great big move that he made was to get away from Watchtower, because he had family locally in the organisation, and where he was situated, like, you couldn't move for witnesses. There's witnesses everywhere there. And so I think he just thought the best option for him, so that he won't be hounded. You know what they're like. They just hound you down to try and disfellowship you. Then you've got no family and you've got poor health and all that sort of thing. Was to just move abroad and just live his life. And that's what he did. He moved to Portugal. Anyway, his health deteriorated further and he developed cancer. So he's ended up back in England and was in hospice care, and that led to him, obviously, his deterioration this week. When I reflect on how I feel about what the effect that the organisation had on Side in particular, I feel really, really angry, because this was a guy that like, the main things that he wanted in life were a partner to love and children. And I don't doubt for a second that if he wasn't in Watchtower, he would have had those things. When his marriage broke down all them years ago, when I first met him, it took him a long time to recover from that. And sometimes part of moving on is rebuilding with somebody else. And in Watchtower, you're so limited, because when you've kind of got this kind of slur of a broken marriage behind you, and when you've got like sisters that are just, all they're looking for is a bloke with a title, like a minister with servant or an elder or a pioneer or something or other, and you've got health problems and you suffer emotionally, and it's difficult to reach those sort of standards, and so yeah, he never met a person that he could build. He had a couple of interests, but things never really worked out in that regard. But I'm sure that if he didn't have the restrictions of Watchtower on him, he would have met somebody and had someone to share his life with. He was lonely. And obviously in Watchtower, there's no chance of having no children if you ain't got no partner. And so, yeah, he died having no children, no wife. And it's sad, because they're the things that he wanted. When I reflect on how he was with my children growing up, you know, he used to try and teach them things, showing interest in them, just bring them gifts, always thinking about phone them up, stuff like that. It was like trying to be like a replacement for not having his own children. And that is something that loads of people go through in the organisation. I'm glad that, you know, I didn't go down that route. Like, he would it wasn't like a regimented witness, but these principles from the Watchtower were drummed into him, to the point that, you know, at the end of his life, he never accomplished the things that he wanted. And that paradise that Watchtower promises you, that's not real. That's no guarantee. And when I think to myself, that was a waste. That was he had desires and No doubt he had regrets, no doubt about it. And I'm mad about it. I feel really, really mad about it, because there's no reason for it. You should be free to make your choices, and you should be free to make those choices and not have to forego your family and friends and your community just because you want to be with somebody, or you know, there's dreams that you want to fulfill in life. And I just feel really mad about it. Anyway, yeah, it's a sad day, and no doubt I'm not going to get an invite to the funeral, so that's that. But anyway, rest in peace, Si. Bye everyone.